Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Have you ever read a book that just, I don't know, gets under your skin, sticks with you long after the final page? Well, today we're plunging into a chilling classic that definitely does just that. Stephen King's iconic novel, The Shining. It's more than just a ghost story, isn't it? It's a really terrifying exploration of humanity right at its breaking point.
It really is. And we've gathered some truly fascinating source material today, direct excerpts from King's novel itself. We're going to use these to help us navigate not just the bare bones plot, but the profound psychological and, well, supernatural layers woven throughout. Our mission basically is to extract the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight, give you a shortcut to being truly well informed about this masterpiece, and maybe, just maybe, help understand why it continues to resonate so deeply, decades later.
Exactly. We'll unpack the core themes that make it so haunting. We'll dissect those unforgettable characters who brave its horrors and just marvel at King's masterful prose, which really ratchets up the tension page by page. So settle in, because this isn't just a story about a haunted hotel. It's a deep dive into the very nature of evil, the insidious ways it preys on our vulnerabilities, and maybe the terrifying secrets that lurk within us all, just waiting for the right or maybe the wrong environment to be awakened. Okay, so our journey begins, as so many good horror stories often do, with a job interview. But this is far from your typical corporate meeting, right? It's Jack Torrance's interview for the winter caretaker position at the Overlook Hotel. Super isolated. And from the outset, the air just crackles with red flags, even before the real spooky stuff starts. It's like the hotel itself is sending out a warning signal.
Yeah, and what's immediately fascinating here is King's masterful introduction of Stuart Ullman, the hotel manager. King describes him as officious, right, with a prissy speed in his movements. And Ullman openly reveals he wouldn't have hired Jack given a free hand. Even his suit, King says, speaks curtly. This had better be good, you, to the hired help. It's not just a minor detail. It's King immediately setting up this tone of judgment, this clear, almost suffocating power dynamic.
And Ullman isn't shy about Jack's previous history either, is he? Brings up the incident where Jack lost his teaching job at the Vermont prep school, Stovington, because of a violent outburst, hitting a student, George Hatfield, for damaging his car.
Exactly. This immediate dive into Jack's past flaws, his temper, it sets him up as this deeply vulnerable protagonist right from the very first scene. He's a man already kind of on the precipice, you feel.
Totally. And then, as if that weren't enough, Ullman drops the really disturbing backstory about the previous caretaker, Delbert Grady. He recounts, in this chillingly matter-of-fact way, how Grady, back in the winter of 70-71, murdered his wife and two daughters with a hatchet and a shotgun, then killed himself.
And the baffling part, the truly weird logic, is Ullman's belief that Grady was less imaginative, that somehow this made him less susceptible to the rigors, the loneliness of the Overlook.
Right. But Jack, with this chilling, almost prophetic insight, immediately sees a flaw. He notes that a stupid man is more prone to cabin fever. It's a moment where Jack almost sees a reflection of himself, his own volatility maybe, but he doesn't fully grasp the mirror being held up. He sees the danger, but maybe underestimates how it applies to him.
Absolutely. And this whole introduction just drapes this profound pall over the entire novel. It highlights the extreme psychological dangers of isolation. It hints at the hotel's insidious, almost predatory influence even before the Torrances have set foot inside. King cleverly uses Grady's tragedy as this dark prelude. It suggests the Overlook doesn't just create monsters, it masterfully preys on pre-existing cracks within people, turns their internal demons into external horrors.
Yeah, and Ullman's pride, it's so unsettling that the Overlook had broken even and shown a profit this season for the first time in its history. It feels weirdly juxtaposed with its grim, murderous past.
It really does. It's as if the hotel's financial health is somehow tied to its darker dealings, hinting this malevolent economy where human suffering is part of the balance sheet. This early foreshadowing really establishes the hotel as an active participant, a character in its own right, just waiting to claim its next victim.
Okay, so they take the job, and as the Torrances begin their drive up to the hotel, wow, the sheer remoteness of the Overlook becomes so palpably real. King just nails that feeling of being utterly cut off from the world. It starts to suffocate you even before they arrive. The landscape itself becomes a character, doesn't it? Intensifying the isolation.
Every single detail King provides underscores this escalating sense of removal. You've got Wendy's worry about the car, that their only lifeline to civilization. That becomes this constant gnawing anxiety, the perpetual signs warning of falling rock zone. They're not just literal warnings, are they? They feel like a metaphor for the impending psychological instability.
Yeah, good point. And the fact they barely see any other cars.
Exactly. The observation that they don't think we've seen 5 cars since we came through Sidewinder, that profoundly emphasizes the extreme isolation they're heading into. And even little Danny, he's just 5 years old. He doesn't actually know the word isolation. But the narrative powerfully tells us he would have seized on it had someone explained it.
Wow. That's subtle but powerful.
It is. It immediately reveals his intuitive grasp of their precarious, increasingly lonely situation. An early sign of his heightened perception, his shine. And the mountains themselves, King describes them as so vast and sheer that you could barely see their tops. It creates this sense of being dwarfed, overwhelmed by this indifferent, majestic, and ultimately terrifying wilderness. This isn't just a place on a map. It's a world apart, designed to strip away all external comforts, leave you exposed.
So, beyond the obvious physical isolation, the Overlook itself starts to feel like, well, like a living, breathing entity, holding dark secrets buried deep within its foundations. It's almost like the hotel has this malicious personality, feeding on the past, waiting to devour the present.
And you get more hints of this from Watson, the boiler man. He delivers these further chilling insights into the hotel's grim history. Casually, almost like it's common knowledge in the trade. Any big hotels have got scandals, just like every big hotel has got a ghost.
Right, and he tells that story about room 217.
Yeah, the chilling story of the 60-year-old woman who died there, abandoned by her much younger companion. And Ullman, the very same manager, apparently pulled strings to cover up the death as just a heart attack, which indicates this long-standing pattern of deception and suppression at the hotel.
And then the chambermaid saw her.
Dolores Vickery, yeah. She encountered the dead woman, naked and grinning in the tub. What happens? She gets dismissed for hallucinations, swept under the rug. Watson's casual estimate that maybe 40-50 people died in this hotel since my grandfather opened it for business in 1910. It suggests this long, bloody history, mostly concealed beneath this veneer of luxury. It hints at a pervasive, hidden death toll that speaks to the hotel's inherent malevolence, not just, isolated incidents.
But the true horrifying depth that comes out when Jack finds the scrapbook, doesn't it? Driven by his writer's ambition, he finds this forgotten scrapbook filled with clippings, detailing its truly lurid and violent past. It's like unearthing the hotel's darkest, most shameful diary. It reveals the true scale of the evil that has just seeped into its very fabric.
That scrapbook is key. It becomes this source of the Overlook's dark lore. We learned about Horace Derwent, the original millionaire owner, made his fortune not just in aviation, but munitions. He even invented a bomb carriage used on flying fortresses, a detail that subtly connects violence and destruction to the hotel's very beginnings.
Wow, I didn't remember that detail. Munitions.
Yeah, and then the hotel later fell into the hands of a group of Las Vegas Sharpies, connecting it to this seedy criminal underworld. King includes these disturbingly specific figures. Charles "Baby Charlie" Battaglia, a notorious Vegas enforcer. Richard Scarney ran Funtime Automatic Machines, long rap sheet for assault. Peter Zeiss, Miami importer, tried for murder. Vittorio Ginelli, a.k.a. Vito the Chopper, tried twice for gangland murders, including a gruesome axe murder in Boston. And Carl, Jimmy Ricks Prashkin, reputedly in charge of money laundering.
So the Overlook basically became a playground for the mob.
Pretty much. A playground for mafia bigwigs. A haven for the corrupt and violent. Culminating in that grotesque triple shotgun slaying of Ginelli and his bodyguards in the presidential suite in 1966. And that chilling handwritten note scribbled into the scrapbook. They took his balls along with them. It adds this truly gruesome, unforgettable, deeply visceral detail, highlighting the sheer brutality and depravity that stained its walls for decades. This isn't just abstract history, it's a catalog of human darkness. The hotel is like a monument to vice.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting, and maybe the most disturbing part for Jack's character. Jack initially intends to expose these buried bodies in his writing, right? Use it for his play. But paradoxically, he finds himself drawn to it, almost possessive of the hotel's sordid history.
Exactly. And when he confronts Ullman about this hidden past, his anger is usually this destructive force that's cost him so much, it actually makes him feel better, this perverse sense of empowerment.
Yeah. It's like the hotel's malign influence is both feeding him, giving him this twisted sense of purpose, and simultaneously taking root inside him, like a parasite.
Precisely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How much of the hotel's evil is truly supernatural, an external force, and how much simply amplifies the darkness that already exists within its inhabitants? A darkness King kind of suggests is inherent to human nature. That's a fundamental question The Shining forces you, the listener, to grapple with as we continue this deep dive. Is it the place or the person? Or both?
Okay, let's talk about Jack's internal landscape. Because in many ways, it's even more volatile than the Overlook's gruesome past. We see early on these deep-seated issues that make him so incredibly vulnerable to the hotel's influence. It's almost like he's the perfectly tailored vessel for its malevolence.
King portrays his alcoholism masterfully, doesn't he? Not as just a habit or a weak choice, but as this almost biological imperative, an inherent flaw described as a broken switch somewhere inside, or circuit breaker that didn't work. This makes his addiction feel less like a moral failing and more like this profound, almost fated vulnerability.
And then the incident with Danny's arm.
Oh, yeah. The devastating incident where, in a drunken rage, he broke Danny's arm by twisting his forearm. That memory constantly brings him shame and revulsion, and ironically, it rekindles his craving for a drink, this vicious cycle of guilt and relapse.
And it mirrors his own childhood trauma, right?
Exactly. Where his father, a similarly violent alcoholic, once smashed his mother's face with a cane and gave Jack a black eye. It demonstrates this terrifying, deeply ingrained cycle of abuse passed down through generations. His father's menacing shadow, even after death, just looms large over Jack's life, a constant reminder of the monster he fears becoming.
And Jack seems to view his whole life through this lens of passive victimhood, like things just happen to him.
Profound self-exculpation, yeah. He constantly tells himself he had not done things. Things had been done to him. This selective amnesia about his own agency, it's exemplified by his great wasp's nest of life metaphor, where he sees himself as having unwittingly stuck his hand into chaos, absolving himself of responsibility. For the car accident with Al Shockley where they hit a kid's bike, for the incident with George Hatfield at Stovington, he felt he was the victim there too. This psychological framework just makes him fertile ground for the hotel's manipulation.
Yeah, sets him up perfectly.
It really does. And his dream of hitting Danny with a mallet, a tool strikingly identical to his father's cane, it's this horrifying premonition of his own descent into that familial pattern of violence, a literal nightmare of becoming his father. The hotel seems to possess this intimate knowledge of his weaknesses. It feeds his ambition for his play, his writing project, offering him perverse inspiration from its dark history.
While also encouraging him to sabotage their escape.
Right, like when he forgot the snowmobile's necessary parts, the spark plugs and battery. Then internally blamed Danny for it, thinking it was Danny's fault. Everything had been Danny's fault. The hotel cultivates his deepest resentments, his self-pity, his pre-existing flaws, transforms him into its agent, a monstrous puppet acting out its malevolent will. It truly weaponizes his internal struggles against him.
Okay, let's shift to Wendy. She often feels like an outsider in her own family, doesn't she? Especially regarding Jack and Danny's unspoken, almost telepathic bond. But what's remarkable about Wendy is her fierce resilience. She truly steps up in the face of absolute, unimaginable horror, demonstrating this quiet strength that ultimately saves them.
Her past is really marked by the relentless criticism of her mother, isn't it? Constantly making her feel like an inadequate mother, remaking Danny's diapers, critiquing his formula, sowing these deep seeds of self-doubt. Her marriage to Jack has been, as King puts it, a lopsided defeat, enduring ominous quiet at meals, countless dry-eyed nights, holding back tears for fear of provoking Jack further.
And she remembers her mother's terrible phrase.
Although it's not your fault, it's all your own fault. You were never ready. Haunting, right? Yet despite all this emotional baggage, this history of feeling small and inadequate, her maternal instincts are profoundly fierce. She's constantly assessing Jack's danger to Danny. And when she considers locking him in the pantry, King makes it clear. It's driven by self-preservation only after son preservation. This clear hierarchy of care, Danny first, is fundamental to her character, her unwavering will to protect.
And her internal monologue shows that battle, right? The self-doubt versus the need to act.
Constantly. She fights her mother's critical voice even as the external horrors are mounting. But when truly pushed to the brink, her transformation is stark, powerful. She's willing to grab a butcher knife. Later, in that truly desperate moment, uses a razor blade to defend herself against Jack, demonstrating this primal, almost shocking strength we hadn't seen before.
And her statement, "Jack's dead, this place killed him," that's such a pivotal moment.
It really is. Delivered with this grim acceptance. It's a poignant, heartbreaking recognition of the supernatural takeover, an acknowledgement that the man she married is gone, consumed by the Overlook, leaving only this monstrous shell. It's a moment of profound clarity amidst all the chaos.
Okay, now Danny. He is, without question, the nexus of the hotel's supernatural activity, possessing this unique, intense ability called the shining. He's the vulnerable yet remarkably perceptive core of this unfolding terror, the one who truly sees.
And his invisible friend, Tony. He's an external manifestation of this extraordinary gift, right? Providing him with warnings and visions that would shatter an adult mind. Tony shows him the chilling red drum murder spelled backward, a terrifying premonition. He shows him the skull and crossbones symbolically plastered on the hotel, a stark warning sign. Tony explicitly tells him this inhuman place makes human monsters, perfectly encapsulating the hotel's corrupting influence.
And Danny's shine lets him sense things beyond just ghosts.
Oh yeah. He senses the constant undercurrent of divorce in his parents' thoughts, knows about his father's car accident before it's even discussed, finds lost objects, like the trunk in the basement. It demonstrates the sheer breadth of his psychic abilities.
But we also see the toll it takes on him.
Profoundly.
Yeah.
Especially after the tragic broken arm incident, he develops this deep fear of the men in white coats and sanitariums, his mispronunciation for sanatoriums. If he couldn't stop trying or experience what his father dismissively called hallucination.
And room 217, that's a turning point.
A terrifying turning point. Where the dead woman from the bathtub tries to strangle him, it moves his perceptions from just scary pictures in a book to active, physical, life-threatening encounters. The hedge animals, too. Initially just static figures in the garden. Then they horrifyingly come to life, snarl at him, confirming his terrifying realization that they could hurt.
And he tells his mother.
Explicitly tells her, with this desperate clarity, it doesn't matter whether you believe me or not. Acknowledging her skepticism, the burden of his solitary knowledge, he struggles profoundly with the weight of it all, wants desperately to leave, but also understands, with this wisdom far beyond his years, that staying is his daddy's last chance to maybe get all better.
Wow. And he sees himself as the key.
Chillingly, yes. He perceives himself as that key for the hotel's malevolent plan, indicating his central unwilling role in its dark machinations.
Which brings us to Dick Hallorann, the Overlook's cook, wise, empathetic, and he shares Danny's unique ability, the shining. He senses Danny's intense shine immediately during their first meeting and establishes that powerful telepathic connection which ultimately becomes the Torrance family's sole lifeline, the beacon of hope from the outside world.
Absolutely. And Hallorann's shine, it manifests with that intense, almost overwhelming smell of oranges, preceding powerful visions. King uses that sensory detail brilliantly to ground his psychic abilities, like the premonition of his flight to Denver crashing. He becomes Danny's reluctant but crucial mentor, gives him that vital advice that underpins the whole third act. If there is trouble, you give call. A big, loud holler. I might hear you even way down in Florida, and if I do, I'll come on the run.
Such a critical promise.
It's profound, rooted in their shared psychic connection. A bond that transcends physical distance, defies the hotel's attempts at isolation. It's really a testament to the power of human connection against these supernatural forces.
And his journey back to the Overlook. It's harrowing, a desperate race against time and this intensifying malevolence.
Totally. He battles a raging snowstorm, visibility down to zero, and increasingly violent psychic assaults from the hotel itself. King describes the hotel manifesting as a poison atmosphere that thickened as you neared it, actively pushing back against him.
And the hedge animals attack him too.
They do. The ones that just moved for Danny. Now they're tearing and clawing at Hallorann as he gets closer. A clear, terrifying sign of the hotel's intensifying malice, its desperate desire to keep outside help away. He even nearly gets in a catastrophic accident with a snowplow because of these overwhelming psychic distractions, highlighting just how potent and aggressive the Overlook's influence has become.
So Hallorann really embodies hope.
He's the embodiment of hope and external help, yeah. A crucial counterpoint to the hotel's isolating, corrupting influence. His journey proves the supernatural threat can be faced, though not without immense personal cost and sheer will. His ability to synthesize all this diverse information, his visions to Danny's pleas, the external dangers, and act on it, despite his own terror. It makes him pivotal. And King humanizes him by showing his fear, too, right? Noting he was almost scared enough to shit peach bits. Makes him deeply relatable. Yet he perseveres, driven by that bond with Danny, his innate compassion. He represents the possibility of intervention, of breaking the cycle of horror.
Okay, let's talk about King's craft here. Because his genius in The Shining isn't just the terrifying events, it's how he masterfully builds that suspense. Using a slow burn that gradually escalates into intense terror, it's not cheap jump scares, it's this creeping psychological dread that gets under your skin and just stays there.
He employs foreshadowing so subtly but effectively throughout the narrative, weaving in these unsettling hints that only really make sense in retrospect, like the chilling discussion of Grady's fate right at the beginning. It's not just a plot device, it's a direct early warning, a premonition of Jack's own grim trajectory.
And the boiler.
Exactly. Watson's specific warnings about the boiler. Seems like mundane hotel maintenance, right? But it later becomes absolutely crucial to the hotel's destruction and Jack's ultimate fate. King's prose itself delves so deeply into the psychological states of the characters, meticulously charting their inner turmoil, their deteriorating mental health. He makes their internal struggles, the paranoia, the descent into madness, as terrifying, if not more so, than any external monster. This profound psychological depth, blurring the lines between madness and malevolence, that's a hallmark of his craft in The Shining, forces you to constantly question the source of the horror.
And the key symbols in the novel. They aren't just decorative literary devices, are they? They feel active, almost like characters themselves, evolving, changing their meaning as the horror intensifies. They serve as these potent visual metaphors for the hotel's influence and the characters' struggles.
Definitely. First, you've got the topiary animals, initially just benign, clipped shapes in the garden, but they slowly, surely transform into active, snarling threats. This evolution, from static art to malevolent predators, symbolizes the hotel's alive, predatory nature, and maybe, more chillingly, Jack's own animalistic descent into primal rage. They start creepy, then move when Danny's not looking. Eventually, they're actively tearing and clawing at Hallorann, reflects the increasing malevolence.
Then there's the boiler, a constant source of tension, needing careful daily management to prevent it from creeping to dangerous pressure levels, threatening explosion.
And its fluctuating pressure perfectly mirrors Jack's own suppressed rage and alcoholism, doesn't it? A ticking psychological time bomb. Ultimately, fittingly, it serves as the instrument of the hotel's destruction, a destructive force mirroring Jack's inability to control his own inner pressure and mirroring the hotel's own malignant core. Watson even explicitly warns Jack, she creeps, referring to the boiler's pressure. A detail Danny internalizes as this crucial warning, a silent countdown.
And the mallet, simple roque mallet, innocent garden tool, transforms into this terrifying weapon of terror in Jack's hands.
Yeah, and that transformation directly links back to his father's cane, that terrifying cycle of abuse plaguing the Torrance family for generations. It's the physical manifestation of Jack's escalating violence, a tangible symbol of his descent into his father's monstrous footsteps.
Room 217 is another huge one, arguably the hotel's most concentrated focal point of malevolence. Houses that particularly active predatory entity, the dead woman from the bathtub, who directly attacks Danny. It's the one room Dick Hallorann specifically warns Danny about, underscoring its significant unique role, a literal chamber of horrors.
And finally, the clock. Danny notes with his preternatural insight that in the Overlook, all things had a sort of life, as if the whole place had been wound up with the silver key the clock was running.
Yeah.
And Danny perceives himself chillingly as that key, indicating his central, unwilling role in the hotel's malevolent plan.
Wow, that's creepy.
It really is.
Yeah.
It suggests the hotel's evil isn't just chaotic, it has a conscious purpose. A driven malevolence using Danny's powerful shine to unlock its full destructive potential. It's a terrifying revelation about the hotel's agency and its intricate, depraved design.
So let's get back to that big question. One of the most enduring debated aspects of The Shining. Is the evil within the Overlook truly supernatural? An external force, or purely psychological, a manifestation of the character's internal demons? King, though, provides pretty compelling evidence within the novel pointing strongly towards the supernatural, doesn't he?
I think so. The novel, through its rich, specific details, unequivocally suggests the Overlook as an active, sentient, malevolent entity. It explicitly picked Jack, recognized and then fed his weaknesses. Alcoholism, temper, ambition, deep-seated resentments. It shows him these detailed, elaborate visions that are impossible to dismiss as just hallucinations, like the phantom party in the ballroom, the ghostly appearance of Horace Derwent, and most chillingly, Lloyd the bartender, who even appears to pour him drinks from an empty, dry bar, actively enabling his addiction.
And the hotel's intentions are made disturbingly clear.
Yeah, it actively encourages Jack to sacrifice his son. Explicitly stating it wants to get rid of the woman and his snot-nosed kid first, so Jack won't be distracted from its grand, horrifying design. That's not just an echo of his mind that
Yeah.
feels like a direct, malevolent instruction.
Right. Jack, under the hotel's overwhelming influence, he's not just imagining things, he's hallucinating liquor, seeing apparitions, interacting with Grady as a companion, even as he visibly loses his grip on objective reality. His internal battles, the very demons of his mind, become these terrifying external manifestations orchestrated by the hotel.
And the entity wearing Jack's face is explicitly described as a terrifying mask, a false face,
Yeah.
confirming that it's not his daddy anymore. That critical distinction separates Jack, the man, the tragic figure wrestling with his demons, from the hotel's monstrous puppet, an empty vessel for its insidious will.
And the ending, the boiler explosion, that feels pivotal to this interpretation.
Absolutely pivotal. Serves as definitive proof of the hotel's supernatural sentience, I think. As the boiler explodes, fulfilling Watson's warnings and Danny's intuition, the hotel itself shrieks, screaming panic and doom and damnation in its own ear, dissolving, losing thought and will. That powerful anthropomorphic imagery implies a conscious, malevolent force finally defeated, a living entity that genuinely perished in the inferno. It wasn't just Jack's mental breakdown culminating in self-destruction, it was a physical and spiritual battle with a very real, very evil antagonist that was vanquished, at least for a time.
Now, while our deep dive today is focused intently on King's novel, it's almost impossible to discuss The Shining without at least a brief nod to its famous adaptations and broader literary connections, especially given their cultural impact and the fervent discussions they still spark.
For sure, Stanley Kubrick's 1980 film adaptation, for example. It differs significantly from King's novel, doesn't it? Particularly in its portrayal of Jack's character arc. Kubrick presents less of a tragic descent influenced by external forces, and more of an inherent madness that was just waiting to emerge.
Yeah, and Wendy's portrayal's quite different too.
Very different. Shifts from the resilient character in the book to one often perceived as more hysterical and fragile in the film. These key differences, along with the film's altered ending regarding the hotel's ultimate fate, they often spark passionate debates among fans and critics. Highlights how an adaptation can create its own distinct identity, even diverging sharply from the source to serve a different artistic vision.
And we also see clear connections to King's broader body of work in The Shining. Recurring themes he explores repeatedly: dysfunctional families, the cycle of abuse and addiction, the dark underbelly of Americana.
The Shining really serves as a foundational text for many of those explorations, lays the groundwork for how he'd continue to examine these deep-seated societal and personal horrors.
And of course, the sequel, Dr. Sleep, published decades later.
Further explores Danny Torrance's adult life, how the trauma of the Overlook continued to shape him, proving those psychological and supernatural scars left by the hotel were profound, long-lasting. Following him even into adulthood demonstrates the enduring legacy of the Overlook. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, so we've navigated the treacherous halls of the Overlook Hotel. We've explored the depths of Jack Torrance's fractured mind, witnessed Wendy's fierce resilience in the face of just unspeakable terror, and peered into the unique and terrifying world of Danny's Shine. King's genius truly lies in his ability to make us question what's real and what's a manifestation of our deepest, most primal fears.
It really does. The novel forces us to confront these uncomfortable truths about addiction, the pervasive nature of family trauma, and the insidious nature of evil, whether it comes from within or from a malevolent external force that preys on our vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
The Overlook Hotel, with its sordid history and its powerful conscious influence, it remains one of the most compelling and terrifying characters in all of horror literature, a monument to the darkness that can consume us.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, consider this provocative thought we touched on earlier. In The Shining, the hotel actively consumes and amplifies the characters' darkest impulses, strips away their defenses until only raw instinct remains. Does the Overlook simply awaken the monsters within, bringing to the surface a latent, inherent evil that was always there? Or does it, through its own malevolent will, actively create them, shaping its inhabitants into something they were never meant to be? And what does that tell you about the power of place and environment in shaping our own realities, for better or for terrifyingly worse?
That's definitely a question for you to mull over long after the echoes of this deep dive fade. Thank you so much for joining us on this chilling exploration of Stephen King's The Shining.